Hey y'all, here for Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, season 5, episode 3. So let's get to it. It basically continued from last week with the fight with Tammy and Betty, and they're going back and forth. And Betty is upset because Tammy pulled out her hair, and she's like, "This is my real hair. She pulled my hair out." So she's like, feeling her scalp or whatever. And as she's feeling it, her hair is coming out. She's like, "Oh my gosh, she pulled my hair out." So Tammy is like, "I don't even know Betty, and she's insulting me, my husband, and I felt the way, so that's why I attacked her." So the next scene, it goes to Dom and Tierra. And Dom is like, I feel bad about the whole situation with Tierra and Tommy. I just want Tierra to know I had nothing to do with that messy situation. I had nothing to do with that setup. I didn't even know what was going on. So Tierra is like, I think Dom is cool for reaching out to me because Carly didn't. And Carly was the one that invited me to the party. So Dom is basically like, well, what's the backstory between y'all? And Tierra is like, listen, I've known Scrap since we were teenagers. I got pregnant with our son. I had the baby. When he went to jail, I held him down, put money on his books. I put money on the phone so that he was able to call 6 times a day. And she was like, around the time that they got into legal troubles involving their dad, that's when KK she just didn't like me because she felt like I had told on her to the cops when I didn't. So Dom is like, wow, that family seems to be messy. But Tierra doesn't seem like she really has anything to do with that drama or whatever. I mean, time will tell, but she just seems like she's the level-headed one or whatever. So then it goes to Scrap and Stevie. And Stevie J is back in town, and Scrap is with him discussing the whole situation with Tommy and Tierra. And we all know Stevie is the master, like, Stevie is the president CEO of the Creep Squad. And Stevie is like, listen, I know what it's like juggling two women. So, but you have to make a decision at some point. So Scrap is like, I really don't want this to be a decision to make right now because I'm about to be sentenced. And I want them to get together so in case I go away, I'll know that everything is fine. So Scrap admitted he loves them both, and he's like, Tierra is wholesome, and Tommy is like my break away from everything. And Stevie was like, listen, I thought because Scrap was like, well, I know you had a similar situation with Mimi and Jocelyn. Mimi was wholesome and whatnot. Stevie was like, listen, I thought Mimi was wholesome too, and the next thing I know, she hanging from shower rods. I'm like, yo, Stevie is a mess, but Scrap is basically like, I don't know who to choose. I don't even think it should be a decision. I just want these ladies to get along for the sake of the situation. And I'm like, Scrap, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, again, I know that's what you're supposed to do, but you can't be playing. You can't play with these women emotions. You have to pick one or the other. Decide what you want to do. If you want to be with Tierra, be with Tierra. If you want to be with Tommy, be with Tommy. And don't be with Tommy just because your mother wants you to be with Tommy. Your mother will be all right because whether she likes it or not, you and Tierra are connected through your son. So she has to deal with Tierra for the rest of her life. And that's what I never understood about mothers like that. You do anything in your power to ignore the baby mother or the wife or whatever because you don't like them. But guess what? You're not the one sleeping with them every night, okay? You're not the one that has to deal with them on that level. You have to have some kind of relationship, especially if kids are involved. You have to have some kind of relationship, being the mother and her being the wife or the baby mama. Y'all have to have some kind of a relationship because she is the mother of your grandchild. Okay? So it's like ridiculous when you have mothers who treat the mother of their grandkids like crap. I don't understand that at all. That's something I would never do to my kids. Like if they get older and they decide to get a significant other that I'm not too fond of, I let them know I'm really not too fond of her, but hey, you like her or you love her, I love it. So, it's your life, but I'm not gonna be overbearing and, treat the girl like complete and utter trash because I don't like her. Like, I don't think that's fair. And I hate mothers who do that, and KK does that. And I mean, I could understand she's upset with Tierra, or she don't like Tierra because she feels like Tierra is a snitch. But Tierra said that she never snitched, so you know, whatever. So Waka is still on he's still on the road doing his shows and whatnot. So I guess he stopped off in LA and he called Tammy because they were missing each other. So she came like at the drop of a dime, and they're together in the hotel and they're just talking about the fight with Betty. And Tammy is like, well, me and her, I wasn't even gonna fight her because I don't know her like that. But I felt like she was insulting you, your morals, your values, and us as a unit, and I didn't like it. I don't even know her. So Walker's like, why are you even giving attention to people who don't even matter? She's a nobody. She doesn't know you or me personally. So why do you even care to address her? So the subject switched from that to like romance, and Tammy feels like there's no romance between them, and she feels like when she tries to get romantic that she does all the work. I know the feeling. So she's like, she wants him to basically put forth the same effort that she is. If they're in a relationship, then he needs to put in work just like her. It's 50-50, and I completely agree. So she's like, well, I'm having a Black Man's Magazine release party. I hope you're coming. He's like, no, I ain't coming. And then he's joking, but he's like, nah, I'll be there to support you. You know, you my wife. I love you to death. So Scrappy and Betty are in a studio session, and you know, Scrappy is like, Betty is a good looking girl. You know, she's somebody I would smash, but I just want to keep it strictly professional because I'm not trying to get into trouble. I'm just trying to work. So he's like, I'm just all about chasing my paper. But he heard about the fight that she had with Tammy, and he's like, whoa, Tammy is Bambi's best friend or whatever. Because I guess when he brought Bambi up, she was like, yeah, I got into a fight with her bestie. And he's like, well, why is that? She's like, because I just feel like her husband is homophobic, and he says some things that didn't sit right with me about the LGBT community. And Bambi, and not Bambi, Scrappy is like, listen, Bambi Bambi has a right to feel the way that she feels because we just recently broke up. And then she saw us, and then Betty was like, yeah, but you posted a video of me and you on Instagram, and then you immediately took it down. Why is that? He's like, listen, we're not over each other. We just recently broke up. We still got love for each other. So if she asked me to take something down because she felt the way about it, that's what I'm gonna do, because out of respect for her, that's what I have to do. And you know, Scrappy is like, even though me and Bambi ain't together, she's still getting what she want. Like, he was like, it's like we ain't together, we broke up, but she's still getting gifts. So Betty is basically like, well, I think that's stupid. If you should be able to do what you want to do and not have to sit up here and answer to nobody because you're single, you know. So Scrappy is like, listen, I love her. I still have love for her. I'm not in love with her, but I still have love for her, and she's going to be my friend always. If you can't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. So we move on to Tammy's Black Man's Magazine party. Um, Chris was there. Mimi was there. Um, Dom was there. And Chris basically, he put the blame on Dom for the fight. And Dom was like, I ain't had nothing to do with that craziness. So she basically explained, because Mimi and Chris didn't even know who the girls were. So Dom basically explained the situation. She was like, listen, Carly invited them there. They were only supposed to talk. I don't know who threw a drink first. I don't know what happened, but that's what happened. And Mimi is like, listen, the next time I see these chicks, if they in the same room together, it's going to be a problem with me. And I'm like, well, Mimi, we know you really not going to do anything. But okay, you know, put on for the cameras. It's cool. So Dom basically apologized. She was like, well, listen, I'm sorry if you thought that I had anything to do with that. I mean, I didn't, but I'm going to apologize anyway. And Chris was like, no, it's fine. She said, but look, on the bright side, I didn't fight. So Mima was like, yeah, that's true. You didn't fight. So Tammy gets on stage and she reveals the cover of the Black Men's Magazine, and she's basically saying that she did the cover to remind every lady out there that's a mother, that's a wife, that you can still be sexy. And it's all about you getting your sexy back and not just falling victim to losing yourself in motherhood. And I'm like, that's what I need. That's what I need. I need to get my sexy back. So Tammy, you're inspiring me just a tad bit. I need to get my sexy back. I need to upgrade my sexy. So, Tammy went to go sit with the rest of the crew, and Deb was getting on her about fighting Betty, and Tammy was like, listen, only reason why I fought her is because I felt like she was disrespecting my family and my husband. And Bambi was there, and Bambi was like, yeah, I know who Betty is. She the one that's in the studio with Scrappy and his Instagram videos and all of that. And she's like, it's always something with Scrappy and these thirst buckets he's always hanging around. So Tammy feels a little bit bothered because she invited D. Smith to the party, but D. Smith opted not to come. So now she's trying to decide, she's just trying to figure out what to do as far as D. Smith goes now. So Bambi was like, well, listen, don't even stress yourself about it. We're here to support you. Your real friends are here. We don't need that chick with the crooked Dora the Explorer bob anyway. And I was like, yo, Bambi got jokes. So now Stevie goes to meet with Mimi to see her new house, to check on her. She said the last time they spoke was when they was all in LA. And Stevie is like, things are going good. I'm going to film the movie that time of the month in Atlanta. I brought all my LA business to Atlanta so that I could be close to you guys. So he's like, what's going on with you? And she's like, well, I got a new boo. We've been dating for a little over a year now. And he's like, oh, okay. So he's like, is he a good dude? She was like, actually, it's not a dude. And he's like, what? It's a female? And she's like, yeah, it's a female. So he's like, well, all of my threesomes with me, Mimi, and Jocelyn were pretty good, but I never thought that she would take a dip in a lady pond. But listen, who am I to judge? If she's happy, I'm happy. Anybody's an upgrade from Frico, and I'm like, right. I'm actually happy that Nico and his annoying wife are not on this season, because I think that they were supposed to be on this season, but something happened with Margot and she got fired. And I was like, thank God. Because don't nobody really care. Like, after Mimi cutting y'all loose and, what storyline do y'all have? What, Margot being a lesbian? Nico trying to scam somebody else? Like, y'all have no storyline. Y'all were on the show because of Mimi. Because it's like every other episode, not even every other episode y'all was talking about Margot. Y'all were talking about Mimi. And she was your storyline. So I'm like, thank God. But anyway, Stevie was cracking jokes basically saying, well, how did y'all meet or whatever? And she's like, we met. And she's like, just something about her. I was just smitten by her. He like, you smitten by the kitten? She's like, nah, not really. Chris doesn't think of herself as a woman. She thinks of herself as a man. So Stevie is like, okay, whatever. You like it, I love it. So he's like, I never thought that Mimi would choose breast over beefcake, but hey, that's her choice. So, Stevie was basically asking her personal questions about Chris, like, is she better in bed than I am? And Mimi is like, yeah, she's good in bed. So Stevie is like, what? I thought I had the lightning tongue. She like, listen, you could take some lessons from Chris. And I'm like, damn, Stevie, she is playing the hell out of you. But again, it's good to see Stevie and Mimi in this element and them not arguing, like them actually being friends and cracking jokes. So I think that's cool all the time. So Bambi goes to Scrappy's house, and Scrappy is there with his assistant Taylor. Taylor answers the door, so immediately Bambi is like, well, who is she? And he's like, well, that's my assistant. And she's like, assistant for what? He's like, well, I have a modeling company. She said, you got a modeling company? My God, you like putting bitches on payroll. And I'm like, Bambi, I feel the same exact way, because I'm like, who really is gonna sit up here and model for Scrappy? What is the first thing that Scrappy knows about clothes? I guess with Scrappy, the saying would go, money, hoes, and clothes, all a nose. I think Biggie said that. But that seems true. But I feel like Scrappy is using this whole modeling agency or whatever, or fashion line, whatever it is that he's doing. I feel like he's just using it as an excuse to be around beautiful women, to try and holler at them. Even though he says he's keeping it strictly business, we all know Scrappy is a creep, so I'm pretty sure he's lusting after these women, trying to scout, see what he could get or whatever. So Bambi confronts him about Betty Idol, and she tells him why, like she's asking him why is she fighting with Tammy, what's going on with that. Scrappy like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. She told me that her and Tammy had a run-in or whatever, but other than that, I'm just working with her. I'm not smashing her, I'm not doing nothing. So Bambi thinks that he's lying. And Bambi is like, well, listen. Scrappy feels like, he's like, why is she even here? I haven't seen her in months. I've been calling her, texting her, and now she decides today of all days to show up. So she gives him back his ring, and she's like, you can take your love, friendship, promise ring because you don't love me. Your friendship is garbage, and every promise that you made to me, you broke. So she gave him back the ring, and then she was going to take her dog. So Scrappy is like, no, you can't take the dog. I'm the one that's been taking care of her. So Bambi was like, well, put the dog at the end of the table. Whoever she runs to, whoever calls her and she runs to them, that's who she's going with. So he put her at the end of the table. Bambi called her, and the dog ran to her. He was like, ain't this about him, bitch? He was like, Jilly act like I'm the one that ain't been feeding her and taking care of her. Bambi just left her out for dead. But you know what? Jilly is a bitch, and that's all she ever gonna be. I'm like, Scrappy, you mad or nah? Because you sound mad. You gonna cry in the car, aren't you? So Bambi is like, well, we leaving, and she takes this dog food. He like, don't take my dog food. She's like, I'm taking the dog food, and then they left. I'm like, this argument is so petty, but whatever. So Tammy finally meets up with D. Smith, and D. Smith explains to her that she didn't want to be a part of the crowd because she didn't really like people who was there. Again, which is what she said at the other modeling thing, like she didn't want to be around Bambi. No, Betty was the one that said she didn't want to be around Bambi, but I think D. Smith already knew that Betty had some kind of, beef with Bambi or whatever, and Tammy didn't even know. So D. Smith is convinced that whatever Waka Flocka thinks, that's what Tammy thinks. And Tammy is like, no, I'm my own individual person. My husband has his opinions, and honestly, his opinions, I don't even think he meant to offend, but if you felt offended, I'm sorry, but I don't share his same views. We think different. Just because we're married does not mean we think alike. So Tammy feels, no, D. Smith feels disrespected, and she's like, because Tammy was like, well, I wanted to help you, I wanted us to work together, and D. Smith was like, no, you wanted to work with me. So D. Smith is like, why would I need to come to you for help? I'm a producer, and I got many other things to do. I don't need to model, and me modeling is doing you a favor. Your line is not even popping. Who's heard of it? So I'm like, wow, she discrediting Tammy. So D. Smith is like, you're irrelevant. Nobody cares about your fashion line. Like, they going back and forth hurling insults. And Tammy is like, well, you know what? I know a stylist who could fix that crooked ass wig of yours in your head. And she's like, oh, thank you, or whatever. So as Tammy is leaving, she grabbed her boobs, like basically to say, well, bye. Like, you'll never be, half the woman I am. And I'm like, oh, Lord, that's opening a can of worms, but whatever. I'm like, this whole argument is just completely petty. So now we get to Scrappy and Betty. And Scrappy is sitting in a restaurant, like, I kid you not, cleaning his nails with a credit card. I'm like, you could take the hood. You could take the boy out the hood. But you cannot take the hood out the boy. Like, you don't have no nail file or nothing. You ain't getting your credit card, though? Okay, whatever. So they start discussing Bambi. And Scrappy is like, listen, again with this fight with you and Tammy, and Bambi knows about it. For some reason, he starts discussing the dog. Like, Bambi took the dog back or whatever because of the situation with you and Tammy fighting and whatnot. And Betty is like, well, I ain't got nothing to do with that. That's between you and Bambi. So Scrap is like, listen, I just want to work with you without the drama. I don't want the headache of you fighting my ex-girl's best friend. And Betty is like, listen, I didn't start that fight. She hit me and I swung back or whatever. And he's like, well, I really want to work with you, but I don't need the drama. And if it's going to be drama, I need for you to apologize. And she's like, I am not apologizing. So Scrappy is like, well, you know what? I'm not going to work with you because this is ridiculous. And I don't want to be caught up in some situation where my loyalty is tested. Like, me and Bambi not together, but there's still love between us. And I don't want her to feel like I'm working with the enemy. So Betty is like, well, when's the last time you had a hit? You ain't gonna make it without me, blah blah blah. And I'm like, Betty, when the last time you had a hit? I mean, I know they threw your credentials out there, but still nobody knows who you are. And people have been Googling you since you appeared on Love and Hip Hop, and the only thing that pops up for you is that you were on Love and Hip Hop. So I really hate when irrelevant chicks are always saying how irrelevant somebody else is. Like every season of Love and Hip Hop, the franchise period, people are always talking about people's relevancy, and it's like you're just as irrelevant as the next person. So what are you talking about? So now we get to the final scene, which is the scene with Scrap, Tierra, and Tommy. Both girls want him to tell the other where they stand in a relationship with him. Scrap is basically like, yo, I got this sentencing coming up. I need for y'all to get along for the sake of the kids. I just want to be able to know and feel like, that if I'm away, things will be taken care of and I won't have to hear about y'all fighting in the streets or whatever. So Tierra was asking him if he's in love with Tommy. He basically said that he's not in love with Tommy. And that hurt Tommy's feelings. And I'm like, well, you in something with Tommy because you've been with the girl for a year and you've been keeping her a secret to Tierra. So you're obviously in love with the both of them, but you're going to sit up here and say to Tierra, because you don't want to lose Tierra and you don't want to lose your son, but you're going to lose Tommy too. You're basically telling Tierra, yeah, she's nothing to me. I'm not in love with her. We're just a fling. So Tommy and Tierra going back and forth. Next thing you know, they're about to start fighting again. And that's where it cut off. And I'm like, this whole situation could have been avoided if Scrap would have just told, if Scrap would have just told both ladies the truth. You sitting up here lying and you got to keep making up lie after lie to these ladies. You look stupid. But that was the end of the episode. Y'all let me know how y'all felt about it. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.